Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Christopher Clipper, what's going on, bro? Christian, what's going on? Brother, truth be told, what's going on? What's going on, Richard Victor? I see you laughing out loud. What's going on? The Rawa boy, what up? A summer cold? Yeah, just eat some oranges, man. Get that vitamin C in your system. You should be pretty good, man. Grapefruit has a lot of vitamin C, probably twice as much than oranges. Definitely. Cocaine Kells, my dear, how are you doing? If you want to get on the panel, I'll definitely send you a link. Yeah, Marvin, what's going on, fam? Julius Minor, what's going on? What up, C over? Yeah, man. We had a pretty butter laid chat last night, open chat on democracy in the black community. Had Brother Moses come through, first time on the panel, long time listener. Had MOT on there. Shout out to MOT, Man of Tomorrow, Black Male Congregation. Um, Sauchi was on. Dr. Phoenix, shout out to Dr. Phoenix. Yeah, cayenne pepper helps too. Cayenne pepper helps too, Crystal Clipper. But yeah, that hangout was pretty butter laid. There was no bloodshed on there. Actually learned quite a few things on that hangout. So the goal of these open chats, man, is to kind of engage you all in the chat who have something to say, and that's not related to space and technology or um, geopolitics or economics. This is where we kind of disconnect from that temporarily to kind of let our mind express itself. So some of our thoughts, basically a blog. But yeah, I was listening to a couple of hangouts between uh, probably Friday and last night. Shout out to Ronan Black. And one of the things that was said on that other channel, I'm not even going to give it any credibility or accreditation or any type of shine because I thought what they were saying was pretty fugazi. They were talking about the manosphere, being a dictatorship, and I thought that was wild. Um, that the men who are supposedly at the bottom of society are also dictators within this small section of YouTube. And I'm scratching my head and saying, how can they be dictators? Right? You don't go to like a breast cancer awareness event and get mad because they're not talking about prostate cancer. That's and then call them dictators of cancer treatment and discussion. That doesn't happen like that. But in what we consider to be the manosphere, right? Backstory again, the manosphere is supposed to be a response to the mainstream of the West that decided to encroach on the innocence of black men. And black men are basically this is supposed to be a safe space for thinking black men. And what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of people who just don't like to hear black men talk, especially ones who are very literate. And I'm scratching my head, and it's like, so what should these guys be doing? You know, um, it's bad enough that you go through most predominantly black neighborhoods and there's no, there's intellectual flight in these neighborhoods. There's capital flight of black men, right? Anytime you have 10% or the best 10% of your neighborhood and your demographics of men leave, whether it's through job opportunities, um, uh, scholastic advancement, or just like collegiate advancement, and even death for that matter, premature death. That hurts the very neighborhoods and communities that black people residing. So you would think that there would be a desire to have these people come and actually share their thoughts on an open platform. And what I'm hearing on some of these other hangouts is that we, we don't need those type of men in our neighborhoods. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? We've talked about this several times before, but you can look at countries all around the world and see that whenever their educated class of people leave, whether it's through civilian deaths or just upward mobility or just flight because the conditions there were not favorable to them. And what I don't think most people understand is that if you look at some of the most recent events, man, Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan, um, even places in Latin America where they had a pretty strong literate class of people. Um, Once those people left, that was it for the country. It imploded on itself. You had warring factions all over the place. You look at Somalia. There's no more elephants in Somalia. They've the poachers had killed them all. But who was protecting them in the first place? It was the conservationists, right? Those people are gone now. So now Somalia, they had an endangered species list, and now those animals are dead, right? You can look at the same thing in Iraq. Iraq was the most literate country within the Middle East, and now the intellectual class of people are gone, and there's nothing there. They had to start training some of the women to be politicians and whatnot because there wasn't enough men to go around, at least of serving age. What keeps Iran going? What keeps North Korea going? What keeps um, Russia going? It's the intellectual class. Despite all the sanctions, despite all of the heartaches, they have a strong contingency of intellectuals who contribute to the society, their major society. And when I hear these hangouts trying to make it seem like the brothers, who can read a book or speak a second language, those are the bad guys, and we need to stay away from them. We need to do something about those guys. And I'm saying to myself, really? So all these other guys are the good guys. These other guys who are involved in such mischief, they're considered to be the heroes of the community. The stick up kid, the guy who put the bandana on his face and ran up in your house or ran up in that other person's house and put the burner to the other guy's head and took his weed spot, took his weed stash. He's a hero, right? The guy with the SK rifle who came through and had no aim at all and let the chopper fly. He's a hero. You don't want to mess with him. He's a hero. He's a real soldier. Got street credibility. But the guy who went to Duke University, the guy who went to UNC Charlotte or you know another PWI or even a HBCU. I remember it was a time in the '90s, man. There was a strong movement for everybody to go to HBCUs. Not anymore. Now you go to HBCU, you're a cornball. Go to a PWI, you a sellout. You work for IBM, you work for the white man, you a sellout. Work for Microsoft, you're a coon. I mean, this is what they're saying in social media about black men now. You go to the army, you enlist to the military. That's the white man's military. You shouldn't be there. So we've basically turned um, the intellectual black male, the brother who can think on his feet and provide solutions, and the aged brother who's seen multiple presidencies and different administrations, lived through that stuff and been on the voting blocks, been out in in unions and stuff like that. We've made him out to be the bad guy. And to hear these hangouts over the last 48 hours or so, just trashing these brothers, man. You're a cornball. You're the lames. Toxic masculinity. I couldn't believe I heard that term, and I said, we've gotten away from any sort of any sort of sanity. And to hear these type of comments made, man, it's just, it's disparaging. When I work with some of the African, I shouldn't say African, but some of the brothers some of these organizations that I've been going to on Sundays. Shout out to them brothers, man. They they come because they want to. They want to make a difference. And then there's other brothers that I run into, and they're like, um, I'm sorry, but I can't partake in that. I'm not going to leave my family high and dry just to cater to a bunch of people who have no respect for me. I remember, I think a few months ago there was a sister who commented maybe on Facebook or Instagram about a picture of some upwardly mobile brothers, man, and she wasn't attracted to any of the brothers in the photo, and she basically, was griping about that. Like she didn't understand why the most intelligent brothers always seem to be the most unattractive. And I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, when I go out and I see these brothers, man, they look pretty sharp and pretty decent. The perception of masculinity has turned the black male into a savage. It's turned this sort of black male into this thick beard, tattoo wearing, oversized fitted hat, Timberlands in the summer with ankle socks, cut off jeans with Fat Albert and Dragon Ball Z on the back. Um, you know, ready to pound on anybody who comes in their way. And they're regarding this guy as the hero. But the brother who is reserved, may have did a couple of tours in the military, may have gone to a PWI or a HBCU, can de-escalate a situation without throwing his hands. He's weak. He's a coward. You know, I had a woman tell me. This is about a year or so ago. Why do you need a concealed carry? CCW, which is what we call it up here, CCW. Are you you don't know how to fight, you don't know how to throw hands, and I said, all the thugs in the streets got guns. No one saying anything about them. That ended that conversation. Never spoke to her again. But that's the mindset. That's what's going on in Black social media, not just YouTube, but even Facebook and Instagram. It's really toxic on Instagram when I see some of these memes and whatnot about the perception of Black men and this intellectual Black male. There's this sort of meme that goes around about this really smart brother, the intellectual brother. He looks like Steve Urkel, but when you come to the Black Brain Trust, you don't see anybody looking like Jaleel White from the Family Matters show. They don't look anything like that. And we're pushing this narrative, they're pushing this narrative that the brother who can read or write code or speak a second language, he's the bad guy. You have to watch out for him. But the guy who crashes up cars multiple times and runs insurance scams, the guy who, the guy who, is robbing weed spots and things like that. He's the good guy. He can protect me. But I've yet in my life to ever see these brothers jump out the window for any of these women. I've never seen it before. I've never seen them do it for the community. There was no guys on rooftops, patrolling at night or anything like that, making sure that the neighborhood was secure or anything like that. There was no neighborhood watch of these brothers. They was out for self. They got a little bit of money, got the snakeskin Jordans, went out there, bought them dirt bikes, stolen, had to keep revving it so that the engine doesn't cut off. Got into chases with the police, grown-ass men, and they're deep into their 20s, still riding around on stolen scooters, popping wheelies, wasting their time. And these are the heroes.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, Moti?
Oh, what's up, man?
Tell him, bro. Tell him. You got anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that there's socially ingrained disingenuousness around this topic. It's just laughable whenever you hear people who are part of that quote-unquote protected members of society talk about this stuff. It's just amazing how they think about other people who's not part of their group. Mm-hmm. We're like worse than white people to them.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I'm like, look, I think you're too slick. I can like you for the community after you didn't destroy it. Like, that's almost like having a bank robber act like he's pro-bank. Mm-hmm. After he done got out for robbing the bank. And somehow the bank tellers and bank management is supposed to hire the guy who tried to rip the bank off with a damn mask on. Like, right. This is what it looks like having these people anywhere near the point or position of being in charge. And for me personally, this is why I have the utmost disdain for these people up front. Because make no mistake, I know how they feel about us. That hasn't changed. Like, the only thing they want It's absolution. So they can turn around and keep doing the same stuff. And the moment you put the last brick on that brand new built community up there, they're gonna mutiny your ass the hell up out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But we gotta understand that these people pain truly doesn't mean anything to us right now. Because here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
They had their shot and their chance to prove how pro-black they were.
Mm-hmm.
That was when they was coming up, right? That would have been a perfect chance to prove how much for the community you are and all this stuff, like all this rain delay and baseball type of doubleheader stuff after you done
Mm-hmm.
messed your life up. Like, come on, man. Like, what is that? Like, what type of fool are you playing us for? And so what they do is they promise these people absolution. They promise them the fact that they're never going to be held responsible for what they did in the past. All they got to do is believe that some productive guy someday is just going to come let them off the hook for what they did in the past. I'm like, nah, man. Dude, that ain't how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got people on YouTube here today, right now, claiming to be community minded, but we're not wasting a second trying to throw dudes who are not part of quote unquote class under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
They waste no time doing it. And what's different now is that other people have a voice. Like, I'm either Pookie or Ray Ray, but if I had to pick a side, I know what side I'm gonna pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not picking these damn reprobate reptiles and criminals for like-minded people. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I saw somebody post an article. I'm not sure when the article was written. It says, I think it was something to the effect of educated brothers can learn a lot from drug dealers or something like that about
No, we can't.
Man, the
order.
hell with that bull crap. Man, what
I
the
think it was.
hell can a damn drug dealer teach me? The hell with that bull crap.
What's going on, Dr. Phoenix?
We can learn from now. What?
It was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about organization, structure, and all this other stuff. And I'm scratching my head. Where's the pension for all of this?
Look, as I was saying yesterday, one of my mentors is a brother who's a physician CEO. His wife is also a physician. She gave up her residency to homeschool their kids because he became the CEO of this organization that he took over after the other brother that was running it passed away, and he was his chief medical officer, and he had been grooming him, as I was trying to state yesterday. Let me tell you something. That's how I learned organization.
Mm-hmm.
This is bull. I'm trying to be PG here. This is bull crap. You know how the white folks and everybody else do it? They go work for one of these big organizations. They absorb all the game they can get. Then they take it and go start their own businesses. How many white boys that were accountants, CPAs, whatever? They worked for some big accounting firm for a few years, then left and started their own firm. I know plenty of guys that done it. Plenty of guys that done it across the board. You name the discipline, they've done it. So I mean, the problem with the drug dealer thing is that how many drug dealers make it out the game clean?
Mm-hmm.
None.
How many? I mean, I can think of three big ones in the last 50 years or so. Frank Lucas, Nicky Barnes, who both died a few weeks ago. One died the week before the other. And then you have Freeway Rick Ross. Between Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas alone, they both made more money. They could have brought Harlem back then probably about 5 times over.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very interesting documentary about that cat, Nicky Barnes. It was on Netflix a few years ago called Mr. Untouchable, because it was based off. There was an article that was written about him back in the early 70s in the New York Times called Mr. Untouchable, and basically it just blew the lid off of who he was. But this cat, the moment he started making his millions in the drug game, one of the first things he did, he threw a party at the Empire State Building back it was like 1970. It was a birthday party for himself. He threw in the Empire State Building. This was right after they just started letting black folks into the Empire State Building. He threw a party that cost millions of dollars. And then when he started running into trouble with the law after the article came out, he got arrested and he eventually got locked up. Some of his boys started messing with one of his girls. And then basically that's when he's turned snitch. He started snitching on his own lieutenants. And in this documentary, if you guys can watch, I think you can Google. You might be able to find it on YouTube now for free. You can watch it for free. Basically, you had his lieutenants that were pretty much calling him a snitch.
Mm-hmm.
They pretty much talked about how he pretty much betrayed everybody. He was a snitch. And so again, you know, you even the same thing with Frank Lucas. Eventually, he turned into a quota snitch. You know, I'm not even about to go there with Freeway Rick Ross because he did an interview with Tariq Nasheed about a couple years ago, and I thought the story was pretty damn pathetic. How he lost all that damn money, if you ask me. But again, you know, if that's what we're supposed to learn, then okay, be my guest. You know.
Well, you know what I'm hearing in Black YouTube, with Black social media in particular, or general, is that brothers who can read, man, brothers who got a piece of documentation from a university or some form of higher learning institute are bad people. You know, they're not to be trusted. You know, the brother who works on Wall Street. You know, I heard this recently too, probably like last month or so. You know, the brother who works on Wall Street. You know, he's not so upstanding either. You know, he runs all types of tax schemes and things like that. You know, to get ahead. You know, so he's not so clean. And I'm scratching my head. How do you confirm this? How do you confirm that he, cheated the tax system? You know, it's not. Are you working for the IRS? Like, how do you confirm that? Right? It's weird how they perceive these types of brothers, but expect that this brother should actually take all of his earnings, his yearly earnings, and should redistribute all of that throughout neighborhoods that he doesn't live in. And yet the same guys who ride around on candy paint and 24s, they don't have to, do what you're asking of him, right? It's fine for him, to tear up the streets and rip up the streets with his loud exhaust system, and bumping all the music. I don't got no problem with guys, buying cars or anything like that. We're car guys on this channel too. But the thing is, there's certain rules that are made for upwardly mobile brothers that these other brothers who stay in the community, there seem to be more value towards them. They're more favorable towards them because they stayed in the community. He didn't stay in the community because he cares about it. He stayed because he had no other place to go.
You know what's interesting, brother, and this is my first real run-in with the manosphere earlier this year. This is how I came across all of this. It was, again, I think I said it before on a panel about a week or so ago with the brother MOT was on there. I listened to an interview that he did on the brother O'Shea Jackson's channel. I'm like, I know a number of brothers that went through that kind of experience. Pulled yourself up out of did whatever, then got caught up messing around with some bum broad with 2-3 bastard children. And the funny part about it was that I watched another video where he was on a panel and they was literally attacking this brother MOT just because he was the only dude on the panel that said what needed to be. Basically, what this comes down to is that you have the brothers who did everything right. And no offense, no offense to the brothers that you got caught up in the system. I'm not go, all of us can get caught up in the system. That just kind of the way it is. But I will say this much. But what's really happening here is that you're expecting the brothers that did do everything right. They're supposed to get their life right, get their money right, do all these other things right, just so they can hand it over to someone that is not even worthy of their time. That
or have no
when they were at their best would have never looked twice at the same brother.
I mean, but they've been trying to stop this conversation from happening for 40 years. They've been stopping this conversation from happening for a while. And every time this conversation happens, they go to the predictable talking points of, well, you just didn't get no ass. I'm like, ass or no ass, I can tell that this is a bad deal. And I could tell that there ain't really nothing in it for me. And I'm not about to throw my entire life experience out the window, so that way I can hand you yet another, like a new game plus my life for you to go mess up. Like, nah, man. Like, look, here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty easy. If you dismiss what they care about the most, which is, all you're above them.
Mm-hmm.
You're already above them. Because here's the thing. Just like the whites after the Civil War, they didn't want the blacks voting. Certain segment of the black community don't want intelligent brothers to vote with their feet. Now that we got a chance to talk,
Mm-hmm.
they want to be shown all the deference and respect that they never showed nobody else, and that just ain't what's gonna happen out here. And the threat of holding the possibility of sex from women that we currently still don't want as a means of keeping our mouth closed about the actual issue is also something that they can't normally use anymore. So I don't know what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, we can have order, and we have to fix it in our time
Mm-hmm.
with us. You know, like my grandfather told me, no, he said that, look, this is about as far as I can push this rock up this hill. I'm giving you all the skills and abilities so that way you could continue to keep pushing. And I'm like, but I'm the only person here. Me and a couple other cousins. It was like, exactly. That's how much wasted DNA we have around us. That's what it was, man.
Yeah, there's a propaganda war machine in place, man. And I think you mentioned about 40 years of it. Whether it's the color purple or other forms of media, print publications such as Essence magazine and so on and so forth. And it's not just them, man. I see brothers in the barbershop look at, guys who came off of work from a long day working on, Bank of America or some other institution. And they come in there to get a lineup, man. And it's like, can't stand these uppity ass niggas and stuff like that. And I'm scratching my head saying he hasn't even said anything to you. Why are you so worked up and worked over by a brother who has a suit and tie on?
Oh, the answer is really simple. It's jealousy, brother. It's just straight up and down jealousy. I mean, that is the simple fact of the matter. If you want to see what's going on, go to any college or university graduation and look at the brothers there. Look at the young brothers there that are graduating. And what do you see?
Mhm.
Those brothers have no real attachment to the black society. They don't.
Mhm.
You know, I'll never forget a couple years ago when I went to my lady's graduation, when she graduated, and I remember her family was there, and I'm looking at all these little, I don't know, these little hood rats, if you will. I'm
Mhm.
looking at them, and they're just like they're looking at these brothers, and they're looking at these dudes, and these dudes ain't paying them no never mind, no attention whatsoever. And these women got mad. You see these dudes are graduating. They got some non-black woman on their arm, and they're just smiling and grinning. And it is just one of those. It's clear what's happening is that these brothers are understanding that they have no real value in black society, so they're moving. And I hear this from my own mentees. My own mentees will tell me this. Like I said before, I'm here in Milwaukee, and I just actually, in fact, I just met with my mentee before as you guys were starting this panel, and he's telling me how he wants to leave. He wants to he wants to get his bachelor of science in nursing, become an RN, and he's trying to get the hell out of here. And I told him, yeah, you need to be getting out of here. There's no place, there's nothing for you here. And again, this is one of these things where these young, I think we don't give a lot of these young brothers credit. They see what's going on, and unfortunately, you get around a lot of these middle aged and older black men, and they pull this bull crap where you think you're about to shame these dudes or yell them down or make it sound like they're soft or they're weak or effeminate or whatever, and that's just simply not gonna fly. These dudes don't care. They just don't.
I was listening. I think it was a podcast, but it came from it wasn't Lipstick Alley. I forget the platform that it was on, but essentially they were saying that the street guys are the real entrepreneurs and capitalists, and that the brother who works on Wall Street, the women don't. The reason why he doesn't get any respect in the community is because he works for a white man, and the street guys don't. They make their own rules, and they basically don't adhere to the principles of mainstream society. And I'm scratching my head. I'm saying, but you go to work every day for the city, local city government, state government, other institutions. How come the rules don't apply to you, but it only applies to this brother here? How come the rules don't apply to you?
Well, I mean, it's very binary. It's the reason why Lex Luthor don't like Superman. He's just jealous of him. Jealous of his position. I'm jealous of where they're at. Now, we did watch them burn the entire community to the ground, put 74s on Cadillacs and all that kind of stuff. And we watched what they did when they had their opportunity to lead the community. This is the result of 30, 40 years of the leadership. The condition of it is their fault, but they want our life. Even though we know what they did. And it's not like we had like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission and we're done talking about it. As soon as they have that opportunity, they re-show how much they haven't learned immediately. Like, they don't wait. And like, here's another thing that's similar to it. All right, those guy used to sell dope and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, I showed him how to go down there and get some of these houses in the community, fix them up and all that kind of stuff. He was trying to down this, grab the guy out of prison. You know what this dude did with all that money?
Mm-hmm.
Talking all that community stuff. He turned right back around and did exact same thing, except that he was just doing real estate. It was still gold teeth in the mouth. It was still rims on the cars. It was still knocking up half the women in the community. He was just doing it as a legal person versus doing it as a drug dealer. So once he got a shot in this opportunity that I gave him, well, I really showed him. He turned around and did all the exact same kind of stuff that he did before. So no, these people are not going to change, man. They're not going to change. But you have to realize they decided to make a community without you. So now you got to decide to make a community without them. That's the only way to fix it. But now your community, they have their community. We're going to see whose ideas pan out.
But now you're asking for a civil war, right? Because the sides that are in need of
Cold War. Cold War.
A Cold War?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, brother, I think that was just bound to happen. I mean, this has been decades in the making. You've been seeing this dichotomy brewing within black society for a number of years now. Again, I mean, you kind of saw some of those stress fractures over the last decade or so, but then, in the last couple years especially, I say you've seen cracks and chasms starting to open up now.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing videos. I know it's probably not a thing anymore. It's probably a temporary seasonal thing, but they're playing a knockout game where they're knocking out decent working class men. I haven't seen too many of these type of things, but we saw a video about a couple months ago. I think I posted on the Black Brain Trust before. The brother in the drop top Audi who did well for himself gets jumped by savages, man, in that neighborhood, man, and people are saying, he's weak because he couldn't beat 9, 10, or 11 people jumping on top of him. And I'm scratching my head, I'm saying, how come? Why is the standard so high for him, but it's so low for everybody else? For those guys, they jumped him with their do rags and then tore him up in his drop top Audi, tore him out of his shoes and stuff like that. And I'm saying, this is a victory. This is progress. Like how is that?
This is how they fight supremacy, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
By acting like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, brother, this is one of these things, I talked about this before. I mean, I see this stuff all the time, brother. I mean, in the ER, in the hospital, in the critical care units. I mean, these are the kind of folks that show up there. I mean, I talked about brother these cats. They G'd up, got the best clothes on, best shoes, and can't pay a damn $10 copay. And I'm sitting here. I got all these damn white physicians and nurses around me, and they sitting here cracking jokes, and you feel some kind of shame about it.
Mhm.
I can't say nothing about it. How am I going to defend that? There's nothing to defend. You can't pay a $10 copay, but you got a $700 Pelly Pelly jacket on. You
Mhm.
got $200 True Religion jeans on. You got $300 Jordans on. You got another $100 something T-shirt or whatever. I mean, again, this is what passes for normalcy within Black society is that mediocrity, and if you can't act like some damn mongrel heathen,
Mhm.
you ain't that dude. I saw that video with the gentleman in the convertible Audi. His first mistake was going back to the hood. I know people ain't gonna like what I said, but that was his first mistake. He should never went back.
Oh, but according to Black YouTube, according to the Manosphere, that's exactly what he should have been doing. Should have been out there,
Man,
handing out, falafel and ice cream to all the kids in the neighborhood and giving them jobs, giving them opportunities.
you know how many brothers that are in the black manosphere that follow like the brother O'Shea that are physicians and stuff like that. And I remember I watched one of his videos and they were having just exactly that kind of conversation. And one of the brothers posted up. I think he's a radiologist, and he said, yeah, you know what? I help the community from afar. I write a check.
Yeah.
I couldn't say it any better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, I was a bit harsh about how I said it on there, but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, what I said was, you know what? I'll fly overhead and like airdrop care packages, but man, you ain't gonna find me no wallowing down in that stuff, man. No way.
No, you can, brother. I mean, just for your, just to take this to the health component. This is one of the major reasons why brothers are 20 and 30 years old and have high blood pressure. I mean, this is one of the major reasons because you have to deal with this stuff every single day. It's coming from your family. It's not just the community itself. It's coming from within your family.
Mhm.
It's the people around you. And I see this all the time. I mean, but again, the problem is, and like I said, I was just meeting with one of the young brothers that my mentees today, just about an hour ago, and I was telling I was helping him write his 5-year plan, and he's telling me like, yeah, I want to get out of here, and I'm telling him, I said, yep, as soon as you get what you need to get, you finish up your degree, you get what you need to get, brother, I'll help you. I will get you. I will find you your position wherever you want to go. Because again, this is one of these things, I teach this to a lot of to the young brothers that I do talk with, because they do need to get away from this. They need to see a world where you are appreciated and you are respected as a black man, as a productive black man.
Right.
And the average black male does not see that.
I
They
mean,
they go
man,
back to their neighborhoods, they go back to their families, and they see their dads get ran into the ground. They see their uncles get ran into the ground. They see their grandfathers get ran into the ground. Men who gave 50, 60 years of their damn life and got nothing in return for it.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you how good it felt once I left the United States from my first station, and I was stationed at Ramstein, and we lived off base. I couldn't tell you how good it felt to be treated like a human being by like police officers and like society at home, man. It felt so good not to be worried about the ordinary everyday life of an actual black American citizen. I want everybody to know how that feels. Everybody should know how that feels. It did a hell of a lot for like my, mental health. Being around nonsense for 3 years, man. Man, it made most of the difference in my life at the time, man.
Hey, what's going on, Kick Sigma? Are they coming for you, or is that something else?
Man, I'm out here doing like what the D boys do, so I guess my numbers come in.
Yeah, pop that Willie, man. Pop that Willie on that Kawasaki, man.
But they not gonna catch me though. I'm too fly for that.
Mhm.
I really appreciate you guys having this conversation. This is why I say that the Black Brain Trust is in their own lane. You guys are always having the constructive conversations, and I've noticed that over the last few months, you guys have expanded your brand and what you're doing, and I just think that is great. Salute to the brother Manna Tomorrow and Dr. Phoenix as well. I talked to them this morning. I think that we're missing something here, though. you know, you guys talk about these black rednecks who glamorize this kind of this thug and thought culture, and they say, well, the thinking black man is a coon and a sellout, and he works for white people. I find that fascinating because they don't do their research. I would say that if you take just the last 40 years, right? If we just go back to around the early 80s, especially into about 2000 period in particular, and we look at how much money that cities, states, and the federal government has made off of the drug trade through their informal employees, drug dealers, especially the black people themselves. The black people are considered the lowest of the low in the drug trade. They're considered like the lowest foot soldiers, while, you know, these more organized groups like these Jewish groups, Russian gangs, Chinese gangs, mafia, they operate more like middle management. And a lot of these black drug dealers have been treated kind of like the assembly line. So let's just take an example of two agencies that enforce drugs in America. I know I was looking at some data from the DEA's office and the Border Patrol, right? So the DEA, through their civil asset forfeiture program, they seize about $5 billion per year, just alone as one agency, right? They seize about $5 billion per year in cash and property. That's just what they put in their records. So anyone that knows accounting and knows about the government, they say that they always use a conservative number. So if they're telling us that they seize $5 billion in property per year in cash or whatnot, we could say that it probably between 5 and 10 billion a year that they seize from these drug dealers on the streets. Okay, let's look at the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol is interesting as well because they're right there on the border. They're the ones that really manage the drug trade, and that probably is unfamiliar for someone hearing that. But these agencies like the CIA, the DEA, FBI, Alphabet Boys, they are the management of the drug trade. The drug trade is one of the biggest industries in the world on an annual basis. I was looking at some Border Patrol statistics. They said they seized, so for you guys that have your calculators out, you guys can do the math on this one. They seized 135,000 pounds of cocaine alone last year. They seized 2,000 pounds of heroin. They seized 4.5 million pounds of marijuana. And then meth, they seized about 7,000 pounds of that last year, just at the border alone. We're just talking about strictly the U.S. Custom and Border Protection Agency itself. Now, I don't have my calculator, but you guys can do the numbers. I know that cocaine is produced in Bolivia, Colombia, and nations like that for less than $5,000 for a kilo, but it sells for up to $1,000 in the West. And in some of like Australia, I think it's more like $200,000 a kilo because it's so hard to get it there.
All the cocaine in Australia is about $1,000. I think I told you I went to school in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew some cats used to buy cocaine in Australia. 8 ball is about $1,000.
Yeah, it's
versus
very
here in the U.S. is about $100.
Yeah, it's very expensive in like places like New Zealand. So we're looking at if you guys do the math, and I don't have my calculator, but just multiply 100,000 by just 136,000. That's going to tell you how much the Border Protection Patrol themselves sees in cocaine, and that's all for show. Because like I said, they're the gatekeepers of the drug trade. So when you're talking about just that level, just on the basic logistics level, now let's look at the prisons. The drug war has been so profitable for corporations and the U.S. government that many states have contracted out their prisoners to private prisons that have contracts with the U.S. government or whatnot, where they're using the labor of these mostly black men and then brown men as well, but mostly black men, to do all this labor, almost like a slave labor kind of thing, where they're working for different corporations that sell regular products in our markets, and they're getting paid like 5 cents. So to me, when I hear, this is why I say that the black thinking man has to fix by exit. And what I mean by fix by exit, you have to take your skill set somewhere else, because we have a different culture. We don't talk about the fact that the free thinking black man has a culture of his own that he is taking from being a capitalist, taken from his own personal code of behavior and beliefs, and he has created his own culture that separates him from the everyday black redneck. So when you hear them say these things, they let you know how slow they are. I'm gonna say it again: the black drug dealer has been one of the best and most efficient employees for the U.S. and state governments over the last 40 years.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the private prison industry, because Apple has been given incentives to bring their money back on shore, right, and bring their operations back on shore. Well, guess what? If they have to move out of China to remanufacture these iPhones and these iPads, guess who's going to be guess who's going to be manufacturing these products for Apple? It's not going to be any sort of lucrative labor in the United States, in the West. It's going to be that prison labor, because we know that IBM and many of these other tech corporations who make motherboards and logic boards for these high performance systems, that it was actually some of the prisoners who were doing it. But if you listen to some of these pundits who come on here and talk about the brother who went to jail, he's a real nigga, right? He's the real alpha male, right? And he's a real alpha male, but he's on the assembly line, boxing packaging boxes and stuff like that up, for these major corporations. But somehow he's the real bad boy. But the everyday brother who goes to work and does what he's supposed to do, like every other American, he's a bad guy. Talk to masculinity.
Well, I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Faber, because he brought up something regarding what we were talking about with the drugs. JP Morgan ship owned by them and insured by them had gotten caught in customs with 1.6 million in heroin on their ship. So go ahead, Dr. Phoenix, but I want to come back to that, because like I said, we don't talk about the fact that these drug dealers and these low-level street guys, that they're making good money on the streets or whatever. Most of these dudes, when they make all that money in their 20s, they end up dying broke and alone, because the government ends up seizing damn near everything they can when they catch you. So it's all a game of catch and release. But when they take you down, they're going to make sure they track down every account. They're going to make sure they have you snitch on everyone that you said that was your friend. And then these dudes come out of prison like in their 50s and 60s, and all they have is tales of grandeur. But they never really had the highlight for a long time. So maybe they had about 3 good years of balling, right? But then they spent 15, 20 years in prison. But you got the mic, Dr. Phoenix.
Yeah, they the last time they was out on the streets, man, was like Windows 98 or something like that.
Yeah, you saw that the Frank Lucas when Denzel Washington played him in the movie. The dude went in prison, and it was like Curtis Blow was the top rapper, and when he came out, they was talking about the Black album came out. It was just like, we don't talk about that reality of the game. That you might get 2 or 3 good years of balling and popping bottles in the nightclub, but you're going to spend the majority of your life disconnected from your family, your community, and you're going to come out just a broken down man with a bunch of war stories from 2 or 3 years of balling. And it's just ridiculous that we glamorize that culture.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just to expand on what King Sigma just said, again, I talked about Frank Lucas and not Bumpy Johnson, but he is a good example as well, and Nicky Barnes. Nicky Barnes was trained by Bumpy Johnson. He got his drugs from the Italians, who Bumpy Johnson also got his drugs from, was the Italians. And Frank Lucas was the one that bucked that trend at the time, he went straight to the source and got it from the Vietnamese. So he went and talked to the Viet Cong and all that and got the drugs directly from them. And everybody knows the story. You've seen American Gangster. But then you go to Freeway Rick Ross in the 80s. He was getting his stuff from the Colombians. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about him, everybody glamorizes him, but everybody always talks about how the crack cocaine is what really took black folks down. That's not true. Black folks was already addicted to drugs well before crack cocaine came around. You watched the Malcolm X movie. When he got out of jail, he went back to Harlem. Half the damn neighborhood was addicted to heroin. What Freeway Rick Ross did was that he made crack cocaine accessible to everybody. When everybody knew Richard Pryor damn near burned himself alive trying to freebase, that's when they decided that's when him and the Freeway Rick Ross and some of these other cats got together and found out this more convenient way of making crack cocaine and making it more easier to smoke and use for addicts. And that's what really made it explode in the black neighborhood. It made it more accessible, more affordable.
And he's homeless now.
Oh yeah, I saw. If you there was a documentary of him on on Netflix. In fact, the boy Antonio Moore was one of the damn executive producers on it. And
Oh,
if you, yeah, yeah, and Freeway Rick Ross, he did an interview with Tariq Nasheed about a year or two ago, and if you listen to the interview, he talked about pretty much he doesn't get paid from that Netflix at all. They got his name. His name is the title of the documentary. They cut that dude out from any profit.
oh,
Any
really?
profit. He gets no profit on it. If you go back and just put in Freeway Rick Ross interview with Tariq Nasheed, it's about an hour long. He talks about it. The dude was so damn stupid. I hate to say this about the brother.
Well, he
The
couldn't
brother
read.
didn't even know how to read till he was about 27 years old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He couldn't read
He kept
until.
calling, yeah, he kept calling Nicaragua.
But yet they say these guys were such geniuses. No, they just happened to be in the right place at the right time. A lot of these guys, they were in the right place, right time. And if they were so smart, why didn't? Okay, up until recently, I know that you couldn't be extradited from nations like Cuba. You might know the answer. That might be. I know. Wasn't it very recently you couldn't be extradited from if you went to Cuba, right?
There was no relations. No.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was no relation.
Okay, so let's take an example of that. So we could take an example like Cuba, which is a nation that's like 90 miles from our border or something like that. So if these dudes were so smart and they was making all that crack money, I know Freeway Rick Ross, I saw an interview where he said he made like $3 million a week. This dude was making $3 million in 1980s dollars. Now that's way more. That's like double what our dollars is today or something like that. So he was making a pure $3 million a week. Why wouldn't a dude, if he was so smart like that, get all his money into Switzerland, get all his money into Switzerland and Cuba or Russia somewhere and had disappeared in the night, never to be seen again? Why is he making documentaries and homeless and trying to make T-shirts? And I mean, this is just ridiculous that they're talking like this was some kind of glamorous thing. These dudes all gave their money back to the government. The city of Miami was built off cocaine money. They seized all this money from the cartels, and they weren't even really run by the black dudes. It was more the Hispanics and Latinos and the Cubans that ran the drug trade in the city of Miami. But they seized all that money and built up all their downtown skyscrapers and gave it to the city itself.
Well, now he's out there campaigning for reparations.
Oh, really?
Really? I didn't know that.
Are you serious?
Who's campaigning for reparations?
I think it's Freeway Rick Ross, right?
I bet you he do want some reparations, but he's not gonna get it because of how the laws were set up. I mean, when they went at you, bro, they went after every account. They forced you to tell them, or you was gonna get even more time. So that's what I'm saying is that, man, I don't even know if we can tally up the numbers of dollars that black drug dealers themselves gave back to the city, the local governments, and the states and the feds over the last 40 years. I'm not even sure we can get a good calculation. We can only go by that calculation from the DA and the Border Patrol. But I know that a conservative estimate would be, just for the DA alone, would be about $150 billion over 30 years. Now, okay, all these people that always talk about the community, just taking that one agency, we're not talking about the states, we're not talking about the border, so just take the DEA, and they've taken about $150 billion. What could that $150 billion have done for these inner city black communities? You tell me, guys.
Everything.
I mean, again, I've talked about this previously before. You go to any city where black people of in any consequential numbers, and there's typically only one, if you're lucky, maybe two hospitals that might service that black population. Between all the money that Rick Ross made, Nicky Barnes, Frank Lucas, these brothers could have brought their respective cities many times over. And again, black folks now complain about they don't get proper health care. They don't get the standard of care. But yet yet most black people don't understand that, oh, well, these educated brothers, oh, well, they need to be coming back to do what?
Well, because they want Medicaid for all. They want they want all types of
Man, let me tell you something. I know physicians right now, nurse practitioners, PAs. These folks, man, they ain't accepting these Medicare, Medicaid patients. Part of the reason is because Medicare, Medicaid pays so shockingly little compared to private insurance. I mean, over the last since the year 2000, basically. I mean, the amount that Medicaid pays out for procedures within for procedures has literally been cut in half. I mean, if you depending on what it is, it's been cut by damn near 75%. So again, Medicare, Medicaid, that's low end stuff. I mean, if you're a physician or nurse practitioner or some provider of some kind, you're probably gonna have a significant amount of patients that are going to be Medicare, Medicaid recipients, but you want to have folks that got some private insurance because that's what pays out, and that's why you're seeing this growing trend in healthcare of concierge medicine. That's why
Yep.
you're seeing all these physicians, and now you got the nurse practitioners jumping on it. That they're doing concierge practices where you don't accept people with insurance. They pay either a monthly or annual fee. Because why? Because everybody knows Medicare, Medicaid does not reimburse worth a damn. It's only about 20. If you're lucky, you might get 20-30% on the dollar. If you work in finance in the medical sector, you don't get nothing. And don't mess up the coding. Don't mess up the billing. You'll get locked up. You'll get locked up with the CMS for the next 3-4 months trying to get it right, and you may never get paid out.
Yeah, but why don't you, Dr. Phoenix, open up your that spare bedroom you have and give somebody an opportunity? What's wrong with you?
Look, man,
Toxic,
I'm just
you
gonna keep it
you
real.
toxic Negro, you.
I'm just gonna keep it real when it comes to healthcare and as it relates to our role as Black people within it and our experience within it. I will never for once ever deny that Black folks do not deal with white supremacy and all of that in the healthcare system. That is very true. But understand something: if you're a primary care provider, you are screwed. You are screwed. You will become a person's social worker. You will become their counselor, on top of being their provider, and on top of managing the fact that they have diabetes, congestive heart failure, chronic kidney disease. They might have borderline personality disorder. They might have generalized anxiety disorder. They might be schizophrenic or bipolar. You have to co-manage people with 4, 5, 6 conditions, and you get very little pay for it, and you go home every single night and you think your job ends when you get off, you get there about 7 a.m. Then you think you get off about 7, if you're lucky, maybe 5 or 6 in the evening. Most of the time it's gonna be like 7. Then you go home and you still have to do the notes from the 30 or 40 people you saw that day.
But
And
if you
again, that there's no real money in dealing with people with chronic health issues, and unfortunately, dealing with Black folks. Not only do so many of us have chronic health issues, but we have Medicare, Medicaid, and it doesn't pay worth a damn.
Yeah.
go ahead, MOT.
Yeah. Even when I was a producer, when I sold insurance, man, I seen all this stuff. I seen up close how the insurance market works, and I had to get out of it in a couple of years. I just couldn't handle being around it. And the dude is not lying. Like, I'm not sure how even Medicare for all would even work, even in its current form. I mean, are they going to force people to take it? That's the only way that it would work. But then the actual lobbying arm of all these nurses organizations would lobby against it. So I'm not even sure how this stuff would even work. Medicare for all. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't. The administration portion of it, I'm not sure how it would work.
Well, the problem is that outside of primary care, folks would typically who have chronic health issues, they also need to see a number of specialists for different things. If you got kidney issues, you need to see a nephrologist. If you have something like maybe MS, you need to see a neurologist or something like that. You're going to have to eventually see a surgeon if you're diabetic, because you're going to get a diabetic wound on your foot or your lower leg that's never going to heal, and you're going to have it for the rest of your life, and you'll get recurrent infections, and antibiotics are going to get eventually get ineffective against it. So now you got to go see a surgeon because they have to surgically debride it. They have to clean it out. And then eventually it's gonna go to the point where we're gonna have to amputate your foot, and if that doesn't work, we're gonna amputate you from below the knee.
Well,
They usually start off with toes, but
I wanted to
Yeah, again, this is an area that I work in. I mean, see it all the time. We know if somebody has diabetes, that is the inevitable conclusion. Eventually, they will become an amputee.
go ahead.
I wanted to add in, what we were talking about because I was thinking about some of those numbers. So you know that Sir Robert F. Smith, we've talked about how he bailed out the graduating class of Morehouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that number of what the DA got over the last 30 years of 150 billion, and I was thinking to myself, do you realize that 150 billion dollars that you could have bailed out 5 million black men and women college graduates debt? So we're taking the number of about an average of $30,000 of college debt. Do you know that with alone that they could have bailed out 5 million of those black college graduates completely debt free? 100% they could have made 5 million black graduates over the last 30 years completely debt free with that kind of money. And this is why I say when I hear a lot of these older blacks talk these things and then talk down on millennials and whatnot, I'm not having it, man. I'm hitting back. I'm hitting back now. Like I'm going over all the numbers. I've been finding some articles about the boomers in particular. I found some really good ones, and almost all of the data says that the boomers are to blame for almost all of the failed policies over the last 40 years. Most of the bailouts, the bailout of Wall Street was mostly written by boomers and the remaining silent generation. The zoning laws that have been so restrictive and discriminatory have mostly been banker and politician boomer policy. The asset forfeiture program was just now taken down in 2018 by Gen Xer politicians. They finally saw how unethical and how corrupt that 40-year program was. And they just now, the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. Just last year, they made that determination. So it's time that we really start looking over these things because, like I just said, if they had written the drug laws correctly and fought them like they should have head on, they could have been using that money to go to those same communities that were being destroyed. But instead, it was not. So, we need to continue these conversations.
And place the blame where it belongs.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a movie called with Sanaa Lathan and what's his brother's name? What's his brother's name? Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find his name. The light skinned guy. Damn, I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, it's called The Perfect Guy. Actually, let me just share my screen.
Michael Ealy.
Yeah, Michael Ealy, that guy, right? That brother. The movie depicts this brother being educated. He's a cybersecurity guy. He's also involved in AML, which is anti-money laundering and investigations in the financial world. And suddenly he's this stalker. He's this bad guy. He's this incel. He just won't take no for an answer. And the one opportunity that you can take a highly performing brother and depict him as this non-stereotypical character, you go right in and you change this guy's character into being an incel. Now, I work in cybersecurity. I've been in IT for over 10 years, man, and spent 5 years in cybersecurity. And I can tell you right now, those brothers are highly desirable outside of the community. This idea that these guys are just they can't take no for an answer. They're really aggressive. They're really toxic. You gotta be wary of these brothers. I just find that to be very interesting when we talk about toxic masculinity. They're always pushing this narrative that the normal Americanized black male is the bad guy, and the guy who does not conform to American standards is the hero. In that, if you were more like him, I would respect you. But when I ask, where are the pediatric centers that these brothers supposedly built or that they're building, they can't ever give me an answer.
Well, Mike, but what you have to understand is there's a group of men who they're comfortable with, and there's a group of men who they're not comfortable with. Facts. They're not trying to hear well-to-do brothers who can take any person from their race They're not trying to put the spotlight on those guys. They're not trying to do that. But for the Snoop Dogs of the world, they wanted to make it look like those guys are the actual most desired guys that everybody wants to deal with because they're not a threat to their overall power. That's the problem.
Facts.
I mean, even the women know that most decent, educated guys isn't really going to put up with most of this FS stuff. We just won't. I mean, because the threat of controlling a guy who can go anywhere with sex is laughable. But to a guy who's a thug, is everything to him because his whole life is based on how women view him. Period. And most people who are far more intelligent than that don't really care about their opinions because they don't bring much to the table.
Facts.
So this is the kind of thing you got going on. So you got to keep having this PR push of trying to make it look like, they'll pretty much put like a cute bow tie on like Suge Knight, and that's who should be running the community and all that kind of stuff. But that ain't gonna work, man.
I got a question for the panel because this all kind of relates. We're talking politics, we're talking economics. All this is like layered. So, black men themselves, right? Just taking the black male voter, right, and the kind of policies that they've supported since 1965. What has the average everyday black man in America gotten for all his political capital that he's invested in? I'm just going to go with the Democratic Party because 90%, it was a 90% voter rate for black men all the way up until just 2016. Black men started to break for third parties. They broke with the Republicans, and the protest vote is probably going to be the biggest voting category. It's going to be non-voting for black men in the 2020 election. I would just like you, because we're talking about the drug war, we're talking about benign neglect policy and all this. What exactly did black men themselves get for their voting loyalty to the Democratic Party of the last 40 years? And I'll just mute up and just see what you guys have to
say. Basically, what they gave you access without support. If you go back and look at, there's a very good book that this guy wrote on the Monahan report, right? And what he says is that what civil rights and affirmative action was supposed to do is bring black males up to standard, right? So they could become equal partners in the family of Americans. They're supposed to bring black males up to standard with white men so that they could actually fix their families and fix their neighborhoods, so they can come up to a standard so they could be assimilated, for lack of a better term. Well, that's the term that they actually use. Okay. And basically what happened is that after the riots and after the war protests, they wanted to tamp down the males. So basically what they gave, I've said this many times, what they gave, what black males were supposed to get with the co-signing of the elite black females is affirmative action. So 83% of what black males were supposed to get in contracts, in spots in universities and education, all that stuff was literally supposed to go to black males. Okay, that went to white females and actually gave all that wealth, all that support, trillions of dollars in support and stuff that was supposed to go to the black people and black males went to white females, and then the black females got the rest of it.
You've talked about that 83% number. Where can I read about that at? Where's that information come from?
The best I've seen it in several places, and the best place, there's one document talks about it. He doesn't give the particular number. Is Tim Wise wrote in a feminist blog, not a blog, feminist publication called "The Sisterhood is Conditional," where white females were actually literally taking all the affirmative action spots and all the stuff from affirmative action that's supposed to go to blacks, and gave it to themselves. And you can look it up. Tim Wise, the Sisterhood Conditional, and he wrote it in 1998. And he actually documents all the things that white females got And now since they got it, they're opposed to affirmative action. Once they got the goodies, they're opposed to affirmative action for black people, but not for themselves. And who else? Dr. Claude Anderson said basically the same. They've been basically saying the same thing. The vast majority of what you're supposed to get went to white female. I have to look for it again because I saw it, and I have to go back in the archives and actually find the exact number where they actually tallied it up. But the best document that you can find that kind of tallies what the white women are supposed to get in state, it's local, state, and federal dollars as far as contracts, and that's where the money is in that document by Tim Wise. And basically, if you look at what Buttigieg, who I don't particularly like, it's not because he's gay, but if you look at his Douglas plan is exactly what affirmative action was supposed to be. If you look at Buttigieg's Douglas plan, what he talks about giving 25% of the contracts to people of color and that kind of stuff, that's exactly what affirmative action was supposed to be back in the 60s and in the 70s, but black men didn't get. So basically you worked for it, and basically that was stripped away and was actually given to white women. And there's more and conservatives, I've seen conservatives admit that because they don't want it go to the immigrants, which they're trying to give it to the immigrants now, all the affirmative action slots and help and bonuses and preferences and stuff like that. I have no problem with preferences, okay, because that was supposed to repair your families and give black people like Mike a shot, King Sigma shot, Dr. Phoenix, and MOT. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be for. Okay, to bootstrap those are supposed to be your bootstraps, and they cut them off. Those are supposed to be your bootstraps. You have access, but you didn't get all the support you're supposed to get. That though, like MOT should have double the contracts he has. Dr. Phoenix is supposed to have double the help that he has. He's supposed to get grants and stuff like that and loans to actually help him start a clinic, a hospital, whatever. Okay, that stuff went to white women. White women got all that power, and then black women are now. And black women got what was left over, and then it went down the line to whatever woman was left, and then black men. I think the estimates, depending on who you talk to, is like black men got 3 to 5% of what they fought for.
Yeah, that's true. BGS, they pretty much by about, I think it was 1988. By 1988, they had already turned into like a gender-based affirmative action program.
Yeah, and they started in. There's a good book called. I always talk about More Than Title IX, when they actually documented when they changed the because affirmative action is not a law. It's actually a presidential what do they call it? What do they call
Executive order.
Executive order. As Executive Order 1168, if I'm not mistaken. I got to look it back up again, where Johnson actually included made white women or women period a protected class and included them in civil rights. And then the black feminists actually co-signed onto it. Yep. And that allowed white women to actually come in, and they knew it. They admitted that they were going to get the bulk of the affirmative action because they were raised in the same families as white men, so they would get the slots. They would get the access.
Now, BGS, that's interesting because see, that's how you see the hoodwink. That what you just mentioned about. Mm-hmm. See, the white feminists told these black feminists it was about girl power, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not about you and your black men. This is not about you and black children. That is all secondary to us as women. Now, you just said it. You said the white women were able to seize control of the affirmative action government dollars while at the same time saying they were against it, and at the same time voting mostly for Republican. Mm-hmm. Voting against the interests of the non-white people, and particularly black men that were supposed to get those monies, and they were bringing all the money back to the White household. So you had money that was set aside for black men. Now going to white women, enriching the white household, which is why we have the largest gap in any income inequality between the races that we've ever seen in history. That's why.
Yeah, if you look at it, and maybe I should do more of this because I'm always bogged. That's how come I love you guys, because I can't do all this shit. If you look at the wages, right, the average wages of going back to the 60s, it was white men, black men, white women, and then black women, right? and black women and white women actually made close to the same amount of money, right? If you fast forward to, I think it was 2010, it became white women, no, white men, white women, and black men and black women, right? And now black men have taken the place of white women as far as earnings. Basically, the white women earn, I think it's like 82, 83% of what white men earn, right? And now
85 cents on the dollar.
85 cents on the dollar. Okay, 80 basically is what much more than I thought, right? Um, and now black men are in the place where white women used to be back in the 60s. The gap between the average black man and average black woman is like what, maybe $5,000 to $6,000. So we're basically, they've drugged black men all the way back down to where black women are. I don't know if that's intentional or what.
Black women make 60 cents on the dollar to white
Yeah.
males, and black men are not even included for whatever reason in those statistics.
Yeah, because they don't want the ugly truth out.
Yes, they have to tag everything to the white male, because part of the feminist thing is that the boogeyman is white male patriarchy. So they tag everything to the white male, but they don't the same black feminists that BJS is talking about don't mention the fact that they make less than white women by far.
No.
They don't
They
don't talk about that. They always talk about the white male patriarchy, but they don't talk about the fact that black women who sold out the black male and the black family back in the 80s and the 90s, they don't never talk about the fact that white women make more than them. White women get all the benefits that should be going to black men in particular, but even if they were going to sell out, they should have did it to their benefit and got it to themselves. So the white women did one of the greatest hoodwinks and bait and switch.
Well, the thing is, if you look all the way back to Sojourner Truth, back in the 1850s, suffrage, they've always been in league like that. Every time it was always black women for black women and white women that fought against black men getting something. Like when black men were supposed to get the vote, get their suffrage, right? After fighting the Civil War, which black men earned, in my opinion, they earned that shit, right? And who was against it? It was black women and white women against black men getting a vote. And then after Jim Crow, it was the same thing. White women got their suffrage on the back of black men fighting in World War I. Black men wanted their suffrage, their voting rights taken seriously, and that's how white women got their suffrage. Through on the back, black women and white women actually said, if you're going to give it to black men, or basically allow black men to actually vote the way they're supposed to be, we want the same thing that they get. You can't give black men something before you give it to us. And basically, in civil rights, the same thing. You can't give black men something, even though it was for the purpose of civil rights was not to necessarily make it fair for black men. Okay. The thing is that you guys know that every society wants some kind of cohesiveness in their society, right? You can't have cohesiveness if you have this separate group that's causing a dysfunction. You have to heal them and bring them in and make the whole society cohesive. And that's what civil rights was for. It wasn't for black people. It's actually for white people, the white elite, to actually create a cohesive society while they had the money. And basically that got stripped away. And we wonder why the black community is in dysfunction after civil rights. That's why. That's why I played that clip by Martin Luther King. We're coming to get our check. In other words, we did what you wanted to do. We got black folks to come to the table and say, okay, we're willing to be assimilated by the white collective. But the thing is, the deal was that you were going to give us money and some kind of tangibles behind it to actually heal our families. You can't send and in fact, Monahan said you can't send these people to go up against the white collective that's like 150 years ahead of you economically, and expect these people to actually compete. It's not fair. It's like sending a boxer in that hasn't been trained into a heavyweight fight. It's not fair. You have to heal these people. You have to give them something, bring them up to standard. And then what he said, after we bring these people up to standard, what they do and how they function in America is their business. Okay. But we did not get our check. We did not get what we're supposed to get to actually bring our families and our communities up to standard. And that's why I always say, even with ADOS and reparations. I said we should get what they promised us, what was signed. The deal was signed to bring these black families up to standard, and black men in particular. And the people that fought for it the most got the least out of it. And I agree with King Sigma.
Would
That
you, you
go
know,
ahead.
based on what you're saying, BGS, would you say that it's fair to say that black women and white women got affirmative action, and black men got mass incarceration?
Yeah, basically. What are you going? If you have a lot of black males that you're going to actually disenfranchise, literally, economically, and politically, and basically they have shown a propensity to do what? Riot, right? How do you control them? What would you do? You give them drugs and do what?
And house them in behind
And put them
bars.
in prison. Put them behind bars. After you can look at after 1971, we go off the gold standard. Mass incarceration started. You ain't got no money to pay them. You ain't got no place to put them. You can't enfranchise them. You're giving all the money to women. Guess what you need to do? Got to control them somehow.
Well, I think that's a good place to segue to the illegal. Does any other brothers have anything to say on that particular topic? Because I wanted to throw a little monkey wrench into the game. So does anyone want to say anything on that specific topic and respond to BGS?
I'll just say that I put in that Tim Wise link to his to that PDF. I'll put that in there again. It's the JSTOR link. You can get it. You can read it for free, but you'll have to fill out a free account. But you can read it for free.
I have a PDF of it somewhere. I don't know if I'll put it up. You email me, I'll actually send it to you. But it's interesting. It's actually a long piece, and he goes through a lot of stats. And because the biggest opponents against affirmative action are actually white women and not white men, which kind of shocked me.
Okay, so this is great. This is very good. I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about the impact of illegal immigration and legal immigration on the black collective and the black top 25% over the next decade. Because just recently, Elizabeth Warren was on television, and she was talking about that she wants to bring in 1 million legal immigrants by 2030, right? And they've already said that they want to make 2.5 million DACA illegals citizens next year or two. And they want to allow about 10 million illegal immigrants. This is all coming from the Democratic Party, Mike. Yeah. Now, I want to deal with this because BGS is in California, right? Around when they did Prop 187. Can you break down for the viewers how Prop 187 was kind of like, that was what started this whole flooding of illegal immigrants, and that how California blacks themselves played into that? Can you give us the history on all that, the Prop 187 and its connection to the current pro-illegal immigrant stance of the Democrats, for example?
The pro-illegal immigrant stance actually started with Reagan, because Reagan needed to break the backs of basically the in fact, Mr. Research actually talked about this in the video, where Reagan actually wanted to bring in illegal immigrants to actually break the backs of the unions. He wanted to bring in cheap labor. So basically, illegal immigrants actually brought in as strike breakers under the cover, which they still are to some extent. 187, the crime bill and all that stuff were actually connected. With 3 strikes is basically mass incarceration, was basically started in the 70s. It's just all those bills, war on crime, all that stuff. 187 is actually an extension of it. They actually give longer sentences to perpetrators, black or Hispanic, didn't really matter, mostly black. And that didn't really play into illegal immigration. That was already done under Reagan, almost like a decade earlier. 187 was actually brought in because the Democrats wanted to deal with the drug problem, because the drug problem actually started, put weapons in into the hands of gangs and stuff like that. So you had a serious crime problem. They wanted to get all these people off the street who actually send a message, and that's what happened with 187. Basically started getting longer sentences, the 3 strikes and stuff like that. But it actually started in California, actually replicated itself all the way across the country. But illegal immigration, as it sits right now, this current version is because of demographics, and it actually I actually played it on my Be Just Reborn channel, where a Harvard professor was actually talking about an article that was put out, I think it was in 2003. I think it was in the New York Times, talking about that Europe is going to need over the next 4 decades. We're going to need 750 million immigrants to come in and actually bolster their numbers. And then it shocked them so much that where the UN and the EU actually looked at those numbers and said, okay, this is pretty much correct. And they started wanting to import certain immigrants to actually come in and actually bolster the numbers. And it still exists today. That's how come you have the the unaccompanied child laws, right? There's actually a UN law. It's not, it didn't start with the United States, even though the United States signed on to it. So all those unaccompanied children at the border, they're actually separated from their people, just like the DACA kids. Okay, what you want is socialized Americans, as close to white as you can get them. And the DACA kids are basically those are the kids that are actually kids of immigrants or separated from immigrants, that are actually raised to be Americans and paid for. So basically you pay $200,000 per copy for these kids. And they want these kids to be citizens, because basically you wasted all that money if you send them back to their country of origin. So almost like a reverse brain drain. And they want these kids to actually bolster white numbers, because if you look at it, I think I showed it, there's a death cross with white people, where the more white people are dying than being born. And it's going to actually erode their power if they don't do something. And this is their attempt to do something about it, even in Europe. So 187 wasn't really connected to immigration, actually connected more to the war on drugs and mass incarceration.
See, but the way that they sold Proposition 187 was that they were going to put in so many, like, for example, California just passed a law that allows illegal immigrants to get all the social services, driver's license.
Yeah, they've been doing that for if basically the hard truth that people don't want to face is that both sides, it's not just Democrats or Republicans, both sides are in on this illegal immigration, because it lessens it keeps down labor costs, even on a farm. Let's say like just growing produce, right? The average farm worker, if he's an American, if he's a resident, has to be paid at least at minimum wage, at least like $10 or $11 an hour, right? You can't pay a legal farm worker $5, right? So it behooves a lot of industries to actually have illegal immigration. That's like Republicans never stop it, because there's money behind this.
Oh, exactly, and that's one of the reasons why they've never enforced it on the business, on the supply side, like on the supply side, because like I said, it's cheap labor, and they don't have to deal with a lot of the issues that relate to the black collector. So what you saying that? What I'm getting at is the fact that it seems to me that Black Americans and the Black managerial class have put themselves in a position that they may not be able to get out of. Is what I'm trying to say, because
they did. They put them in a trap. Go ahead.
It seems like, based on what you're saying, okay, so the Black politicians in California, they were against Prop 187, even though allegedly Prop 187 was going to disallow any kind of emergency funding. It was going to have like a screening process for these immigrants or whatever. And Black supported this. I don't really see a way for the average Black person out of the current predicament in America right now, with automation, which you talk about a lot, recession, these Latinos as a voting bloc power, #1 minority now, the possibility of recession in this decade. I just don't logically see a way out for the average Black person.
You got to remember, Latinos actually classified as white up until actually were white, part of the white collective up until 1968, and they're still classified as white. They separate them to actually diffuse black power.
And I do believe that part about the diffusion. It was crafty. What I'm saying is, how did black people get so outsmarted on all fronts that here we are in 2019, 2020, where you've been so outsmarted in 40 years that the Democratic politicians themselves are talking down to black people. They're attacking black advocates at the grassroots levels for asking for something specific for black Americans who have paid the ultimate cost in this country. I'm just trying to figure out, as a younger man, how did black people fall into a almost complete trap over 40 years? It's like just by step over the decades of the last 40 years, they put themselves in a perfect trap where now you actually have the Democratic, hacks out here talking down to black people on TV, calling them dumb and stupid for saying cut the check.
Because they don't need you anymore. That's what they're telling you. They don't need you anymore. Because Dr. Claw has been telling us for like 30 years, man, if you don't take advantage of this one shot, that you had to not be the underclass anymore, is actually going to be a wrap. Because he knew what they were doing. He said that they were bringing in Hispanics to actually take your place. Okay, we got put to sleep. We got all the shocks. That's how come they put you in jail, flooded your neighborhood with drugs. You had so many problems you had to deal with for your survival from day to day. You didn't have time to look at the big picture anymore. You're just worried about eating tomorrow. When they put a 30 of your kids in, 30 of your boys in jail, they flood they put your women to sleep by giving them welfare and giving them subsidies and stuff like that. They put you to sleep, benign neglect, put you to sleep. Give the women just enough to shut up and basically keep your boys oppressed and put you to sleep. So by the time you come out of it, now we're just not coming out of it, basically the deal is already done. And the Democrats have already switched. They switched sides before we even knew it. They're still trying to keep it quiet. Like, no, we really still are behind you. No, they switched sides a long time ago. I played that clip by what's her name. She said that civil rights were for blacks. How can you give it to immigrants that didn't earn that shit, right? And basically, all the Democrats say, well, these are the new political players. We're building a new political class that can get behind us. And they were unashamed about it. They really were. And I said, damn, that's the realest thing I've ever heard. Because I'd never heard it before. But once I heard it, I said, that's the realest shit I ever heard. Okay. We were never supposed to be a productive class in this country. We were never supposed to be that, unfortunately. And Dr. Claude said, they said, basically, you were always meant to be a permanent underclass in this country, just like the Dalits in India.
Well, just, building on the title with Mike, Mike, you got this title that says Our Intellectual Black Man and New Toxic Masculinity. For me, what that means is that I was wondering about this whole anti-intellectual movement that I see in Black America, which relates to what you're getting at. And I was wondering, like, is there a condition for this? And I looked it up and found out that there's actually a psychological condition called misology. And somehow a misology has become a way of looking at Black men and Black women, but mostly Black men that are intellectual, as a bad thing. And I come to find out that misology means like literally a deep-seated hatred of reasoning, critical thinking, and intelligence. I think that's flooded our mind.
Because you don't see this stuff aimed at women.
Nah.
There's no such as an educated lamette.
Now, why is that? Why is it there's no such thing as an educated lame female?
Because that is a good question. You brothers need to investigate that. I have my thoughts, but I don't have any proof. But the thing is, you were never this is a gynocracy, and feminists actually purport this, but basically, black women actually live this. You're supposed to support them. Black women were always supposed to be the most educated class in the Black community, going all the way back to emancipation. The Mohawk Conference actually literally said it, that Black men were never supposed to be educated to the same degree that Black women were. So this is a pattern that has been set up for over time. Black men have never been as educated as Black women, ever. in this country. And the only time that we came into parity or close to parity was in the 70s, after the what is it the Kerner Commission report, after the Martin Luther King riots, where the Kerner Commission says, okay, we need to integrate these black males into factories and give them jobs and stuff to calm their asses down, right? What they found out when they actually started to give these black men jobs, okay, and I actually said this before, give these black men jobs. What they found out that the black men were not educated enough to actually take these jobs. So what they had to do is actually retro educate all these black males, and going forward, they actually push black male education to bring black males up to par with everybody else. And somebody questioned, I think it was Sam in my hangout. He questioned that, actually pulled it up, where before 1968, only 23% of black males ever graduated high school. 23%. And after 1968, they started pushing up, and now they're on par with everybody else. I mean, they're still behind, but basically 89% of black males, almost 90% of black males actually graduate high school. They're still behind everybody else, but the thing is, they're not as far behind as they used to be. So basically,
what do they do different? What do they do different to get black boys to graduate school? Was it, free lunch at school and busing? How'd that happen?
All they did was emphasize it. That's all. All they did was emphasize it. All they did was, I talked to a lot of older black men, right, as I was coming up, and basically they always, all black boys, all black men during that time were actually pushed for trades. So basically, you got to be 12, 11, 12, 13. They actually push you into become a tradesman, working some kind of trade, woodworking, building houses, whatever, right? Farming, whatever. They push you into trades. And then the women in the family actually encourage you, basically at 12 years old, go out and get a job and start bringing money into the family. So you're encouraged not only by the white collective, but also by your women to actually go out, because they didn't think you needed education, because at the time, guess what? Manual labor actually paid more. And women and black women couldn't do the same manual labor. So at the time, it made sense back then. It made sense back then. But when the economy shifted to more where you had to have more education, then they figured that model didn't work anymore. So they had to bring black men up to par. That's how come they start pushing early education for black boys and stuff like that, which they still don't do to the extent that they should. But the thing is, they started pushing it more. But all this stuff is actually ingrained. In fact, I had to go back and look and see where the pattern actually started. And that's, the pattern has been there for hundreds of years. It didn't just start yesterday.
Now, BGS, I was watching these political black female political feminist lectures, but these were like symposium, like a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day symposium. Some of them were like smaller groups, but they did have some political clout. And then others were like where you had big hitters, celebrities, PhDs, powerful attorneys in these groups. And they really parallel exactly what you were talking about from the past, where they're, if Hillary Clinton would have been elected, the person who would have picked her cabinet members, or at least would have been in charge of that, was a black woman. And she was speaking at this political lecture, and she's talking to black women, and what these women talk about is black women becoming empowered, becoming a part of establishment politics. But what they don't ever say is anything about black men. Now, and I actually read one PDF. It was the program for one of these symposiums, and at the end, all it had was it wasn't the program. It was actually the notes after it was done. And what they said at the very last sentence of this 5-page document was, "Well, we want to help support black men too." And I was like, that's apropos of what I'm hearing of all this. It's like the black female power establishment looks at black men as an afterthought,
as support. And that's the thing that you're hearing from black women. And when you're not supporting them, then you're cancer. They would have to push you out. Like I said, there are no black female nerds. Black girls rock, black girls magic. Attorneys, doctors, scientists, whatever. Okay, and they always push these women to actually go forward and actually do this kind of stuff. Okay, and they never get slagged, they never get ostracized from the community. They actually get brought back into the community without any hassle. But black men don't, because that is not the black position that black men are supposed to play. And I hear this a lot with professors that have to teach black boys. You still today have black boys going to university that are functionally illiterate, and that's I'm a cuss right now. That's a fucking crime, in my opinion, in this day and age.
I would
What it
agree with
sounds like
that.
is the black male. The black male should be a surrogate
Yes.
to, yeah,
Yes. I mean, I don't have to tell you,
tempered
Mike.
male.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you, Mike. You lived that, and this is across the board, from
Hmm.
Pookie and Ray Ray all the way up, across the
I
board.
would agree with that. I spend time in both clinical and academia, and that's essentially what happens. In fact, typically the black males usually wash out of college first.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, they're
Mm-hmm.
usually the first ones washing out.
Yeah.
Usually the first semester. They're usually done by the first semester. And
Yeah.
again, I've spent a lot of time at the undergrad level, tutoring a lot of black males. And again, I mean, they are for the most part functionally illiterate. I mean,
Yeah.
you wonder how did they get through the public school system, especially since I'm here in Milwaukee, and King Signal can
Mm-hmm.
obviously speak to that. So,
Yeah. I mean, what's her name? The actress. She when she taught substitute teachers in L.A. I can't remember her name. The actress. She actually taught in the Crenshaw district. She said exactly the same thing across the board about black males. She said, "You guys aren't."
I will say this much,
Uh-huh.
that there is an exception to that, because at my alma mater,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it where they had a program that they put in place where they were actually pulling a lot of these kids out of the quote hood, and they were actually bringing them into the university, and they were giving them their dorms, giving them stipends. And in those scenarios where the black boys did get support, they
Mm-hmm.
actually did do better than the females. Actually, they did quite a bit better than the females. So
Yeah.
I will put a caveat to that. When the boys were given resources, they
Yes.
do typically outperform the females. and
Mm-hmm.
and this is across the board. If you look at a lot of the standardized exams, black males, given the resources, do
Mm-hmm.
tend to do better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah. That's exactly why you don't want to give them resources, right? I mean, that's the only
I would say
conclusion you can
yes.
come up to. I mean, it's obvious if you give them resources. It's obvious that if you give them an education that's actually built for them, they actually will excel. How come you don't do it? It's a question that I ask all the time. Why don't you do it? Because it's not, you don't have to do a research. It's already been done. It's already been proven for the last 40, 50 years. If you give black males X, Y, and Z, they will do X, Y, and Z. How come you don't do that? Is it planned failure? You rather send them to prison rather than make them productive, which doesn't make sense. I've said that many times. Why would you spend in California under 187? Why would you spend $60,000 to send a black boy to prison a year when you can spend one tenth of that and make him a productive citizen? It doesn't make sense. $6,000 a year will basically in California would have uh, made that black boy, that black male, productive. But you rather send him to prison for 10 years for $600,000. It makes no freaking sense. And basically, and white people didn't complain about it until they actually stripped the educational budget from California and actually paid to lock these people up. And that's the sad part about California education. California used to be the best university educational system, well, probably on the planet. But locking black males up, or even locking black Hispanic males up at $60,000 per year, and you shifted the budget from like $1 billion for prisons and and like $6 or $7 billion for education at the time, to a point where the prisons got $9 billion and the education system got 4. And what planet does that make sense?
Hey
You
guys, I hate
know,
to do this. I,
All
I
right.
what's
actually hate to do this. there's nobody else here to co-manage the channel. So I would leave it open, but there's nobody here to co-manage it.
Okay.
Because we have a managerial administration for the Black Brain Trust, and no one's here to actually to run it when we're not here. So we probably have to shut this down and reconvene. I really hate to do this because we had like damn near 130 people just in the chat. So
Oh,
let me see. Let me check my text message.
well, the thing is, this will continue, man. As the automation kicks in and as jobs get start going away, and it gets more crucial. Black people are gonna have to make some hard decisions. I mean, a lot of hard decisions. Black women in particular. What kind of community do you want to live in? You know, and you can't keep this stupidity up. And you have to start listening to the Black female elite, the divine nine, as they say, because they're going to lead you into a hole. It is what it is.
Are you gonna, BJS? Are you going to speak on that point? Because I hope that you would do a video talking about just strictly that point right there about the hard decisions, because that's the part that I'm having a problem dealing with, because
I'll speak to it again. I've done it before. And Mike can tell you I've said this before in some of my rambles. It's not the first time that I've said it, but I will actually do it again. They tend to be some of my most popular videos for whatever reason. But yeah, I'll do it again. I've said it at least 3 or 4 times when I did rambles, especially earlier on my channel. But I'd actually refresh it and actually do it again, because I've said this before, that you're going to have to do. How come I actually brought up the education of black boys? How come white women can raise better black boys than black women? What is the reason?
Yeah, you saw that on RT. I think last month, where you had that white conservative woman who had a biracial son, and that black feminist going at it, and the white conservative woman said that I would never throw my son under the bus. You know, my brown son under the bus. I'm never going to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
that's interesting. You brothers say that, because I've
shoot
seen
shoot me the link, Mike, when you get a chance. I want to check it out.
It's on RT. I'll find it when I come back.
Okay.
I hate to really shut this down though. I got to shut it down right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So
right.
why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? King Sigma, can you do an overflow on your channel? Continuing this discussion.
Yeah, I could do an overflow for about an hour, man. Yeah, I could do about an hour. So if you guys want to dig into this,
I'll stop you,
because this is very disrespectful. So yeah, I'll open it up, because I just can't get over the fact you said that they're calling black thinking men toxic masculine. This is unbelievable.
So, they've been doing that for a while, man. It's not new.
See, I had never seen them say that black intellectual men were toxic masculine. I had never seen anyone say that in the space that I've been in. I never saw that before.
So I mean, King Sigma.
The elite black women, because it was coming, man, because they don't want you to actually derail their power, because they're fighting for political power along with the white women, which is something. If you look at Scandal, man, Scandal actually told you everything. Where the black woman, the white woman got power as president, and basically the black woman was actually the sidekick. That is the model. The last year or two of Scandal, I think it was last season.
Yep.
That's the model.
I don't know why people didn't see that was predictive programming. I don't get why people don't understand that that's the only role that Hollywood plays. That's why I think Kamala Harris I call her Olivia Pope. But all right, you guys, man, thanks for everyone coming out, man. I will continue this on my channel for another hour, because it seems like people want to continue this. So, thanks, Mike, for having me on.
All right.
Yeah, no problem, bro. All right,
Thanks,
peace.
Mike.
All right, peace, Mike.